I wondered if you could be a little more eccentric this week.
I'll do my very best. I'm quite yoghurt weavery this week. Why do you want me to be more eccentric, even more eccentric? Why?
Because we weren't very funny last week. I didn't have any bits to cut out to put at the beginning.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. I've got a public service announcement for our listeners. Anyone in America at the moment can simply text Own It Podcast to 33444 and they will end up with both of our fabulous free gifts that we give away to subscribers to our mailing list, and they will get to go onto both of our own mailing lists so they can see how we do our marketing. We do it very differently, don't we? But, you know, if you see how each person does it, then you can choose the way that suits you. So, because a lot of people listen to a podcast out and about, they're not near their computers. They can't go to ownitthepodcast.com and subscribe to our mailing list, but they could just text Own It Podcast to 33444 and find out all about us and get some lovely free gifts.
Okay, so let me ask another question. You said only in America. Is it coming to the UK and Europe?
I would imagine so, very quickly, yes. A very high proportion of our listeners are in America, so do you lovely Americans text Own It Podcast to 33444 forthwith.
Okay.
Here ends this public service announcement, Judith. Well, hello, Judith. How are you this week?
I'm great, Nicola. How are you? The sun is still shining in South London, unbelievably.
What's going on with the weather? It's like being abroad. It honestly makes you want to rethink your emigration plans, one's emigration.
Well, you definitely wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the world when it's nice like this, I think.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a very, very busy week, because you said I could go first this week. But I've got a request, first of all. I wondered if you could be a little more eccentric this week.
I'll do my very best. I'm quite yoghurt weavery this week. Why do you want me to be more eccentric, even more eccentric? Why?
Because we weren't very funny last week. I didn't have any bits to cut out to put at the beginning.
Okay, I'll do my best.
They're usually led by you being eccentric, and then we go off into the realm of fantasy. So.
Okay. I'm quite hippie this week, actually. So we'll see.
Oh, I love it when you get all woo-woo. Okay, so I've had an amazing week, actually. It's been absolutely incredible. I've had my first new stranger sign up at my newly integrated membership website, who's come directly from Facebook ads. So she's gone through the entire funnel. She's seen the ad, she's signed up, she's watched the videos, she's got to the end of the videos, she's decided she wants to become a member of my site, and she signed up. And that was a real thrill for me, because I we talked about faith in previous episodes, haven't we? I had faith it would work. I put the work in. I overcome the obstacles, and there she was in my inbox, brand new member. So big thrill for me, that one.
Well, can I interrupt you there for a second? When this happens to my clients and they get their first ever stranger, I go, oh, this is great, it's working. Because, you know, when people start up, they try to fish in ponds a bit close to home. Do you know what I mean? They're trying to get their friends and family and supportive colleagues who've wanted to encourage them to pay them money. Strangers are just the best ka-ching ever, aren't they?
They are. I was listening when I was editing last week's episode. You were talking about Nation of Shopkeepers. I got to say, that the ka-ching. I also definitely get a sound effect on my mobile when a new order comes through. I've also attracted an amazing new client who is a household name in the coaching world. I think you know who it is.
Ooh, I do, yes.
Yeah, she's been awfully busy because she's been off to Necker Island and places like that as usual. But she came good last week and signed the agreement, and we're starting work this week on her, which is really exciting. All my other clients are doing really well. My super yacht skipper is selling 3 a week of his product, and that's rising, and that's coming directly from my activities on Facebook ads for him. So it's a real pleasure. And in fact, you were talking last week about something to do with the accounts. How much of a pleasure the mechanics of doing your accounts give you. And I was doing my Facebook ads this week, and I was thinking how much of a similar kind of visceral pleasure it was giving me, because I've also got a very big best-selling author client, and I was struggling to get him new leads. And I thought to myself, because he'd given me a load of images, and I was trying to match up the ads to the landing page. And I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, Nicola, you're getting blinded by the fact you know this person. So why don't you just come at it as if it was a completely new client? And I put up 2 ads which had rather splendid bugs in them, not creepy crawly kind of bugs, but just like really impressive, beautifully photographed bugs. And it's converting like crazy. I didn't even know if Facebook would approve them, but they did after a little pause. So when they pause a bit longer, a real person's looking at them. But it was highly relevant, and it's got a very high relevancy score, and they're converting like crazy to new leads. So I'm very thrilled with that. I'm involved in 3 giveaways this week. When you say, oh, yeah, I'll do that. Well, all 3 of them have come at once this week, and they're all 3 of them quite a lot of work. They send you through, these summit things. They send you through a great long list of requirements and things you have to do. And my brain goes into overwhelm, and I completely ignore them until the absolute last minute. So I've been doing all the last minute stuff, catching up. But the big news of the week is that I placed a Tesco's order last week on Monday after our chat about domestic and household systems, and it all arrived on Friday. And I've had the most wonderful week eating the most amazing, delicious food. I've not been around the co-op and been tempted by their finest curries with accompanying poppadoms at all. And I've lost 4 pounds.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So that's my week. I'm feeling very, very, very pleased with myself.
I hope you noticed that last week when we were talking about, organising systems and how, you said you'd be interested and could I go off and write the blog post. I hope you noticed I was as good as my word. I did indeed write the blog post.
Yeah, brilliant it was. Cool. Any more tips? Just keep them coming.
Well, let me see. Let's see what happens. Yes. So my week, spring cleaning continues here. I've had the car MOT'd. A gardener came yesterday, which means the whole garden looks just fantastically neat and tidy, which means I can now have my clients around to play cash flow games in the shed. I was a little bit ashamed of how it looked before. There was weeds in every corner of the patio. Now it looks gorgeous. In fact, last night I went out and had a look at it. I just went out and stood in it thinking, oh, this is so nice. So that's fun. I love people. I love to sit at my desk and pay somebody else to do something I don't want to do, and then be able at the end of the day to go out and admire their handiwork, and also to see their satisfaction in a job well done.
You've just given me a brilliant idea. I've got a tiny back garden and a window box, and Sarah actually took the window box off the front window. She was so embarrassed about it the other day, and put it in the back garden. And I'm just going to find someone. I was thinking I should go to B&Q and get loads of primroses and things. And I thought, oh, you want to hire a gardener?
Well, why not? Last week, but these are all systems, and quite a lot of my clients, 2 or 3 of my clients this week, have proudly announced that and I really think this is the best place to start with delegation and outsourcing, that they've hired a cleaner, and after a cleaner, a gardener, however small your garden is, actually, because when I lived in central London, there are people whose businesses are window boxes, and they just come around and install a window box and maintain a window box for you.
Oh, the relief I feel at the idea of letting go of that job and just going
I know,
and enjoying it.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
amazing. When I had my accountancy business in an actual physical shop, we had these beautiful window boxes out the front, which we had to nail on in the end because people were a bit inclined to steal them. But I think we chained them on. I can't actually remember. But there was a firm who were retained to come around, water them, and replace them, and keep them looking lovely all the time.
Brilliant. And I bet your heart is gladdened as the owner of a cleaning biz franchise kind of thing. The thought that all these people are hiring cleaners, that's got to be good, hasn't it?
Well, I think it is quite interesting because you know how when you're a bit hard up, you struggle to make that first choice to pay somebody else to do something. But one of my clients, in fact, some of them take ages. They go, because it often, there are a few false starts when you get a cleaning lady. It doesn't gel with the first one or the second one. So you think, oh, it's not worth doing. I might as well do it myself. But, in the end, if you push through that point of pain and you find somebody and the brilliant thing I think is, if a cleaner's going to charge you, yesterday my gardener charged £18 an hour. If I can earn 19, I'm ahead. That's how I look at it. If you can earn more by the hour, by the productive hour, sitting at your desk when somebody else is doing something for you, you're in profit, But anyway, let me tell you about the rest of my week. Encouraged by our conversation last week about niching, I've, as you know, worked over my own website, judithmorgan.com, and just made it all about the one thing, which is my incubator group, Small Business Big Magic. It's still a work in progress. I've got work to do on that, but I've been wanting to create that for some time. I want to have this space where people can come and ask questions, but also where they can join and be in a group, and that's what I'm going to do. And last night somebody sent me a link to a website that would be a perfect model for that, which I'll show you later, and I've sent it on to Marion as well. So that's my big news: spring cleaning, MOT, gardener, cash flow games, and revamping my website.
Brilliant. And didn't you actually, because I did, as you know, gave you some feedback about your website, and then you immediately came back to me and disproved what I just said because someone had just signed up.
Yes. Well, it does happen that with the first ever member in Club 100 was a drive-by, somebody, a bit like the one you said, a stranger, somebody I'd never heard of. The first thing you know about them is the PayPal notice. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, so do I. Marvellous. We ought to, that might be something we could discuss in future weeks, that whole giving people free trials versus, immediate.
Yes.
Versus.
Well, good idea. I'll put it on the list. We'll do that.
All right, cool. So what's fueled your fire this week then?
Well, I woke up on Monday morning, as you probably saw from my blogs, with a fantastic unsolicited testimonial. Did you see that?
I did.
An unexpected unsolicited testimonial. It said nice things about the podcast. And it talked about niching, which I don't know whether the testimonial was inspired by our conversation last week. And what my client said was she realised she'd been a bit of a slow burn at self-employment. Actually, I don't think she has at all. I think she was just speaking to the point that we both know, which is it can take a while to find yourself. And she said, one of the things was I had to find my niche and then I had to, get the experience to go with it. Just going to read you some points here so you can see why it's fueled my fire. You're often in my thoughts, especially the pearls of wisdom you've dispensed over a long period. Even though we're not working together at the moment, I do still draw inspiration from our sessions. I mean, fancy picking up your iPad from your bedside table on a Monday morning and seeing that. It made me leap out of bed. Clients who, and then she sent me a what do you call those things? A graph of her growing monthly income over the last 15 months.
Oh.
Well, anyway, I wanted to send you my latest income chart by way of showing you the influence you still have. I mean, how gorgeous is that?
It's gorgeous. And, they do say that if you've got a great coach, you can hear their voice in your head for a long time.
Oh, well, bless her. I mean, I'm sure it works both ways. I'm sure I rely on the wisdom of people I've known for decades and vice versa. But we don't often take the time to send somebody a note to tell them that. And I just thought that was a genius thing. What about you? What's fueled your fire this week?
Mobile-geddon has fueled my fire this week. Yesterday.
Pray do tell. What on earth is Mobile-geddon?
The Google Mobile-geddon. As of yesterday, Google have rolled out their biggest update since Panda and Penguin, and everyone thinks they're actually updating Panda and Penguin at the same time. From yesterday onwards, the algorithm is being updated so that if you have a non-mobile friendly website, you will no longer be shown in search results to people who are on mobiles. That includes iPads, tablets, and for the first time ever, the entire population of the internet is more than 50% on mobile devices. So it's absolutely huge that you get your website sorted out to be mobile friendly. There is actually if you just do a search, Google Webmaster Tools mobile testing tool or something like that, you can actually put your URL in and see if you're mobile friendly. And it's quite funny because, the things that come up if you are or if you're not are quite human. But the thing that made me laugh about it the most was I've got this gorgeous new website. I've finally bitten the bullet and moved off lead pages, even though it was converting at 3% of people who came to the site to book themselves into my diary to talk to me, which is quite a large thing for cold traffic. But I decided it was too childlike and too silly looking, and I didn't like the colours. So I've gone over to something rather much more sexy looking, which is a new theme. And I was absolutely mortified to find that while it is mobile friendly, when you sit and look at it on a mobile, obviously I can't do it on my phone because my eyesight's far too bad, but on my iPad, the writing doesn't move in the same way. It's a parallax theme. So when you slide up and down the pictures, the writing moves over the pictures and things. It's quite a nice thing, but it doesn't do it on iPads. So while
so you had your own mobile Geddon then?
I did, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm going to have to consult the oracle that is all things WordPress, Steve Watson, and get him to help me because it's not doing what it should do on mobile, and people can't read all the words.
Oh,
I know. But anyway, it is quite exciting, and the reason it's fueled my fire is because it's going to knock out an awful lot of old, out-of-date websites, and it will give the smaller businesses a real chance at getting some traffic over the next few months if you're mobile.
Yeah, that is exciting.
And adding lots of lovely content.
And that's very exciting. So actually, we might go on a bit of a content creation binge then.
It's a good time to do it.
It is, yeah.
And I'll be in our word of the week. I'll be telling you exactly how you can do that.
Ooh, tempting.
A word from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by clicksandleads.com. Clicksandleads.com believe in affordable traffic and leads for everyone. They'll set up your Facebook ad campaign, page likes, leads or remarketing, then they'll manage it for you. They'll even split test your ads and audiences to find the best performing ones. Game-changing marketing from clicksandleads.com.
Well, it was one that you flagged up last week, I think. I'm not sure whether you brought it up during the show or after the show. You said we should talk about how can you tell as soon as possible whether or not your new business, is a goer, and conversely, how do you know when you're flogging a dead horse?
Oh, that's a good topic, isn't it? Even if I did invent.
Yeah.
It was prompted by, everyone talks about The Dip, the book by Seth Godin.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's Seth Godin, and I'll check anyway. And
it is. Yes, it is.
I read it and I thought there's no bloody useful information in this at all about whether to tell whether you're flogging a dead horse or not. You must have had clients. In fact, you must have clients that come to you with an idea and you think, oh, that's never going to work or make them any money. I don't get that quite so much because they're usually a bit more techie and they've done some keyword research at least. What do you do? How do you tell them? What do you do with them to tell if it's going to make money and
yes,
all that stuff?
Okay. I don't see many ideas that I don't think will float. I do see some. They're quite rare, to be honest. And I'll tell you why I think they're rare is because in my niche, it's the same as yours, but in a different way. You're often looking at, how many units of, say, a book or something does an automated system need to sell to make it make sense. I'm sort of doing the same thing. So with my clients, if I know what they need to make a month and I know what they're selling and at what price, we can work out how many units of those do you need to sell. And it's usually quite a modest number.
And it's usually, it often involves physical, or an overhead to produce it, doesn't it? You've got quite a lot of people who make physical products.
Can you think of an example? I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But yes, I mean, that whatever we sell, there are costs of sale, as it were. But I think that for my typical client, a solopreneur working on their own, the number of, say, even coaching clients, or I think actually the hardest number perhaps is books. If you're either on Amazon or selling your own book, you need to sell an awful lot of those to pay your bills every month. But almost everything else is quite a modest number. I probably only need 50 clients a year, and there's 8 billion people in the world, and half of them are in self-employment. So it isn't that hard, I think. I tell you what I see, and actually you and I have got a good example, which was, we closed the Money Gym at the end of 2010 because of the credit crunch. It wasn't a time to be teaching people about money. And, what my clients tend to do, a reason why they might stop flogging what they perceive to be a dead horse, if they've changed their mind about their project, it seems like less of a good idea, or they've gone off it. I'm thinking of Susie Baggs, who I told you about before Christmas, who had twins and her business was called Maternity Leavers. But 3 years later, she wasn't interested in maternity leave anymore. So she switched over to copywriting, which was a skill that she'd learnt in those 3 years and was much more engaged by. So it wasn't that the first one was a dead horse. It was more that she was killing the horse off, as it were. So I think, I can't think of any. This morning there's a dilemma in my inbox where somebody doesn't really know what their business is yet. And if the horse feels a bit dead to them because they have been flogging something, I don't mean a product or a service, they've been flogging themselves for 12 months without much of an outcome. But I don't think I've seen many stories in my life where somebody comes up with an idea and I go, well, I don't really get that at all. I do see it once or twice a year, but probably I would say to the client, I don't really get that. And we wouldn't work together because obviously they need a coach that believes in their idea. But it's rare, Nicola, in my world. What about yours?
Yeah. There are 2 people who I can think of in the last 3 years who've come to me with a business that I felt had plenty of potential. No reason why it shouldn't work at all. They were both interested in coaching businesses, but both the people had very, very good credentials. They were niching. They were they were doing everything right, but it just didn't seem. Both of them just didn't seem to take off. And I'm not sure if it wasn't because they were flogging a dead horse, or whether it was just they were gently stroking it occasionally. I think. I think perhaps they think they're doing everything to make it work, but something deep inside them is holding them back from doing whatever it takes to make it work.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And you often see that with people who've got more than one thing on the go. And when I think back to my first coach, Rachel Turner, who was an extraordinary coach, but really was fighting with an entrepreneur who had 4 things on the go, bless her.
Yeah.
Trying to get me to focus on any one of them, and all of them were okay, but I think all of them would have been better with single focus. That is definitely something I've come to believe now, is that if you only have one thing on the go and you focus into 100% on it, if you hold back from focusing 100% on it, it means you don't believe it's going to work, or you don't really want to do it long term. So think about that, because if you can focus on one thing, then you're going to do everything you can to make it work. And every obstacle that come up, in fact, funnily enough, I'm just about to be interviewed on obstacles. Every obstacle that comes up, you will find a way to get over it, under it, round it, through it. But if you've got 4 things on the go, what happens is when you come up to an obstacle, you tend to go off and work on something else. So you lose momentum.
I do think that, I'm thinking back now to my accounting days, and when I started that, which was late 70s, early 80s, the world was a very different place. It was before the internet. And I can think of quite a lot of people who had very nice businesses going that the internet killed off. And a couple of them would do things like be a professional photographer. Well, yes, I do. I'll tell you why. Because newspapers would fly them all over the world to take a photograph. And nowadays might use a library shot instead.
Yeah, absolutely. And also there's lots of people on the ground taking photographs that...
Quite, yeah. So there are things that you could be doing where if you fail to see the writing on the wall about how the world is changing, I do think that your business becomes a dead horse, and that might have nothing to do with you at all.
Yeah, I was thinking, as you were talking about professional photographers, my mind turned to wedding photographers who are still, I know several very successful wedding photographers, because there's nothing like having someone there on the day. Okay, so all your mates are going to be taking photos, and you could collect those photos up and you might get a good one. But if you definitely want some awesome pictures of your wedding, you definitely need to hire a wedding photographer. And the other one that does
Yeah.
well is portrait photography. That was, for book covers and business people who want professional headshots and things. That's not
Yes.
getting killed off by the internet yet, is it?
No, it's not. And I think our first half of our question, the opposite side of the flogging the dead horse, how can you tell as soon as possible that your business is a goer? I think the answer is when you get that first PayPal notice, isn't it? If one person will buy it, then quite a lot of people will buy it.
I think you can tell even earlier than that by even not without a website. If you put up a Facebook page and you start adding great content to it on your topic, if you get likes and engagement and those start coming, and okay, so it's getting harder to reach people organically on Facebook. But if you run, say, a £2 or £3 a day likes campaign and lots of people sign up, and you target your likes campaign to people who are actually already proven to be interested in the kind of things that your page is about, you're going to be able to tell very, very quickly whether there's any engagement or uptake on that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I was thinking, when not the sort of businesses that I would run myself, but sort of having an awareness of what's selling right now. You see great little websites who do things like brownies by post, and people who send cupcakes round and things like that. It's quite a good idea to keep an eye on, what's of the moment, I think, and have a feeling for, what people are buying, what people are spending money on.
How would you do that? Is Etsy one of those? I've never been to Etsy, but is that one of the?
Well, I've had lots of clients who've tried Etsy and not really made any money at it. Well, I think I have an awareness. Everything I look at through sort of profit spectacles, as it were, and I see nice businesses that are all the types of business that are all the rage, and you just got to have your radar to the, I don't know, I'm using mixing metaphors here and say your radar to the ground, but just have your ometer on when you're out and about. Then see what people are spending on. Look at if you look at, say, cinema, which is one of my great hobbies and was one of my mother's, bless her, it had a heyday back in my mother's youth. And then it all went a bit boring and tedious, didn't it, in our youth? And now it's sexy and glamorous again.
Yes, it did. Yes, the 70s were not a great time for cinema greats.
No, cinema or cinemas. Quite a lot of those old ones shut down, didn't they? And then smaller multiplexes opened up. I don't know who had that idea, but, it's all that kind of thing, isn't it? Things change.
Yeah.
I tell you what I do wish. I wish I could come up with an idea, or I wish I could spot an opportunity where, I tell you where the ka-ching is. It's in things that people must buy all the time.
Yes, like the shovels for the gold rush.
Yes, and like now that we all use an electric toothbrush, you've got to keep replacing the heads. You've got to keep getting a haircut. Consumables. What is it that we've got to have in stock that we've got to keep buying? I wish there was something simple like that just sold by the unit, and you had a very simple, it could either be an Amazon thing or an eBay thing where just people had to buy it all the time, and it just sold in units. It's quite dull, actually, and you just count the money. And that wouldn't be what I would want to do for, expressing my creativity through my business, but to have that on the side, I think would be lovely.
I've got two marvellous examples of that. One is that you can get your shaving stuff sent through the post.
So yes, that's come from that book. Have you reading The Automatic Customer?
I haven't. I've got it though. It just arrived last week. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's in that book.
I've got a better example. You know how fashionable blokes with beards are now, especially ginger beards. That you can actually get beard oil, beard and moustache grooming products delivered to your house regularly. Isn't that marvellous?
Yeah, it is. Well, you wait until you get into that book, because there's lots of examples of that in there.
I do wish I did.
But I have a sense that the things that I'm talking about are actually quite dull.
Well, they probably are as a business, and our creative clients wouldn't be interested in them. But they are. That is the way to make money, isn't it? I do wish I didn't know you could get brownies delivered to the house, though.
Yeah, brownies by post. Almost everything can be delivered tomorrow, Nicola.
Oh God, I do need some new toothbrush heads though. So you've sorted me out with another toleration. I have
again. Yeah, Amazon's your place for that. They'll be delivered tomorrow.
Yeah, so there are what we're saying. I think in conclusion, before we go off into a paroxysm of delight about things you can get delivered to the house.
Yes.
Did I tell you about the bloke who knocked on my door? I did, didn't I? We must share.
Did you say you'd bought? What did you say you'd bought at the door? I can't remember.
Well, I've got to repeat the story for our listeners because it's so funny. But basically, this bloke knocked on the door. He said he was collecting for the Prince's Trust. I didn't believe him at all, but he was quite twinkly, in that sort of roguish kind of way. So I let him go through his patter, which he did at top speed, and I looked in his basket, which didn't have an awful lot in it, but he said he picked on the most expensive. I said, what have you got for under a tenner? He said he picked on the most expensive thing for under a tenner, bless him, and it was drain cleaner. And we do often need to clear drains here. So I said, I'll have that then. I said, but I've only got £7. He said, oh yeah, go on then. So I thought, I've got a bargain here. I've got a bargain for something I didn't even mean to buy 5 minutes ago. And then at the end of his patter, he said, after I'd given him the money, he said, I said, we were only talking about people like you with a friend of mine the other day about how brave you are to go door to door. And he said, well, I'm not good looking enough to be a gigolo. And I said, actually, young man, I beg to differ. And shut the door firmly before he could get excited.
You're becoming a cougar at your front door, Nicola.
Knock here at your peril. I'll probably go out on some sort of blacklist. Don't go to 22. She's rompy as anything. What's your word of the week then?
It's quite a serious one after all that giggling. It's commitment.
Oh.
I know. I wrote an article about commitment and consistency because one of my clients was saying, well, actually, it's a common theme that she can't stick at anything. And I suggested that she stick at something for a bit. And so she's picked vlogging, creating a video blog every day. And she's whizzed off to a great start, which is good. And she's said that she will stick at it for a bit, which I believe. But I was reading this book by Gabrielle Bernstein. I don't know if you know her. And I saw her speak at Alternatives before Christmas. And the particular book I was reading was called Miracles Now, 108 life-changing tools for less stress, more flow, and finding your true purpose. Well, it's a big promise. I can't say it's done that for me. But miracle message number 106, which was last week, was, I'm going to read it to you. It's a couple of paragraphs. In 40 days, you can reroute the neural pathways in your brain to create permanent change. Practicing every day for 40 days straight will break any negative habits that block you. If you feel called to take this further, you can continue the repetition. Practicing for 90 days establishes a new habit in your conscious and subconscious. It changes you in a very deep way. Practice every day for 120 days straight and you'll confirm the new habit. Practice every day for 1,000 days straight and you will master the practice. With repetition, you establish a deep connection to the practice. No matter the challenges you face, you can turn to your practice for help at any time. A habit is a subconscious chain reaction between the mind, the glandular system, and the nervous system. Our most deep-rooted habits are developed at a very young age. Some of them serve you and some of them don't. By doing 40, 90, 100 or 1,000 days practice, you can rewire that chain reaction and develop new and powerful habits that serve your highest good. Now, I think we could do anything for 40 days, don't you?
Nah.
Really not?
No, I'd have to.
So if you were my client who was going to video blog every day, I definitely think you could do that for 40 days. It takes her 3 minutes, she tells me.
Yeah, it's deeper than that though, isn't it? It's whether you really want to do it. Because I find that
I think you've definitely got to pick something like that. But actually, even things you don't really want to do that you think you would like to change in your life, I reckon that if you make that decision, what Marion calls an unbreakable promise to yourself, I think you could stick out 40 days.
Yes, well, there's lots of things I should be doing, and I should be trying them for at least 40 days.
Yeah, but don't try all of them. That's the point. Just pick one, because I think what the point of this is, if you pick one and commit to it, excuse me, and achieve the 40 days. Somebody once taught me that you then come to know yourself as a completer finisher, somebody who can stick at things, and you kind of reinvent your sense of self by commitment. I think our listeners should have a think. Is there something you'd like to commit to for 40 days? And if so, just leave us a comment somewhere and tell us that you've picked a challenge and you're going to commit to it for 40 days and let us know how it goes. And I think if you get to 40, you might as well go on to 90 and 120. But frankly, 1,000 is quite a lot, but I don't rule it out. Anyway, so my word of the week is commitment. What about yours, Nicola?
Well, before I go there, I just want to recommend a book to everyone. It's called Discipline, and it's along the same lines of learned optimism. It's I suppose you call it pop psychology, but it's extremely good, and it is about how we wake up every morning with a certain amount of discipline, and every self-discipline this is, and every decision we have to make erodes that pot of discipline. And so this is why it's so important to do things that you need to do, like go exercise, and Miracle Mornings is based on this, basically, that you do before anything else happens, before you have to make even decisions about what flavour of ice cream that you're going to have, is a decision. And by the end of the day, we're worn out with all the decision making. We've got no discipline left, and we just take the path of least resistance, which I've certainly noticed, having lots of gorgeous, lovely, healthy food in the fridge and not having to go around the co-op every night has made it very easy to be very disciplined about what I eat, because I haven't really made any decisions about it, and be confronted in the co-op by lots of different lovely but not very good for you things.
Yes.
So my word of the week comes on really nicely after that, which is leverage. And I might even have talked about this before, but what I'm really talking about is batching and leverage, really. I did 4 podcast recordings last Wednesday. I did the one with you in the morning, and then I did 3 for the Business Success Factory podcast. And I'm batching them now into one Wednesday a month, so that instead of having every Wednesday having to have one, I've only got one Wednesday a month. So I know that if I want to go away, for example, I can do it as long as it's not on that Wednesday. Or I can just say to Sarah, okay, I need to be away that Wednesday. Let's batch them another day. It makes it a lot easier to reorganise things. But the other way of leveraging things is say, for example, your video blog lady, she could do a whole week's worth in one morning and then schedule them to go out later. Now, all the creators in our listenership will be shouting at the radio or whatever it is they listen to us on. Funny how we still think in terms of the radio, because that doesn't feel very creative. But actually, it's better, because you can plan out a sort of sequence of 7 video blogs, and you can record them. And even if you just change your shirt so it looks like it's a different day, it's going to work. It's going to flow much better, because you've got the flow happening with it. One of my clients she said to me, she's got an event coming up, and I said, what do you normally do to promote that? She said, I send out 1 or 2 emails. I said, well, this time we're going to be sending out 10 emails. The first one's going to be announcing it. The last one's going to be closing it down. And you're going to have a couple of social proof, a couple of case studies, a couple of testimonial emails, and you're going to write them side by side. So you're going to open up 10 little notepads on your desktop and have them side by side, great, long, thin ones. And you're going to write it as a sequence, because you'll be able to do what we call cliffhangers. Then you'll be able to say on email 3, well, tomorrow I'm going to be talking to you about blah, and yesterday I talked to you about blah. And you tend not to do that unless you have them side by side. It just makes productivity so much easier. And the other thing is, 2 marvellous tips for leverage. We need to talk about this, Judith, because I had this marvellous idea about our client challenge of the week being transcribed and turned into content for both of us to use, or perhaps even made into a book. Love to hear what listeners think about that. And the other one is, so I heard a brilliant tip, which is, whenever you do interviews, like we've both been interviewed by Mark Mawhinney for Natural Born Coaches, what you do is you get an audio copy of your interview, and you get someone to edit out the questions bits, and you get it transcribed, and it turns into a massive article on your specialist subject, which can then go onto your blog or into your membership area. And Google loves blog posts over 1,000 words, and I can't think of an easier way to create a massive, what they call pillar article blog post, than doing that. So I think definitely thinking about, and obviously if you had audio and you had a transcription, that's lovely multimedia content, and Google loves that too, and so do your members in your membership site. But you could then just pay someone, like we used to pay Pravina in Pakistan, something like, I can't remember how, it was so inexpensive, it was unbelievable. She'd take a blog post and turn it into PowerPoint slides for under $10. And you could then get someone else, and there's a chap called Cyril that I use to put audio to slides and turn it into, and that's videos right there. So one thing of you doing something you were going to be doing anyway, for these seminars, for these online conferences, for any podcast interview, you can take that audio and leverage it far and wide, which helps your content creation enormously.
Very good.
Went on a bit of a rant there, sorry.
That's okay. So your word of the week was batching and leveraging.
Well, it was leverage, really, but I threw batching in there just as a cheeky one. You know I like to, if I can get away with it.
I do. I nearly went for commitment, consistency and commitment myself this week, but I thought, no, I'll let Nicola break the rules.
I'll tell you, I'm writing it down now. Commitment and consistency. I have to work out how to spell it. Is it an E or an A? But I'll get there in the end. What's impressed you then?
Well, I went on Monday night to Alternatives, which is my favourite night out, St James's Church in Piccadilly, to see Robert Holden, Dr. Robert Holden. I don't know if you know him. Do you know him?
Name?
Yes, he is. He's written loads of books. His field, I guess, is happiness and lovability. Corporates pay him lots of money. He's a fascinating chap, and it was a book launch, effectively, for a book that he's co-written with Louise Hay, which is called Life Loves You. Unfortunately, the book isn't available yet to download from Kindle, not until the 5th of May. Otherwise, I wanted to read you something from it that he had us laughing all night, but when he read a particular poem that he'd written, he had me in tears. And really what impressed me was somebody who can speak for 90 minutes without notes and engage an audience and get us to laugh and cry. And, you know, I'm always banging on about how 12 quid at Alternatives on a Monday night is the best inspiration of the month often. And this was no exception. I go now with this lady that I met in the queue in September, who used to be one of my bookkeepers about 2 decades ago. The last time I'd seen her was at her own wedding in 1990. Now she's in her 50s, and when she arrived this week, I said, "Oh, you're looking a bit knackered," and she said, "I'm running the marathon on Sunday," so I'm deeply impressed by her as well. But Robert Holden and my old bookkeeper who's running the marathon, they've impressed me.
Well, I've been impressed by rev.com. In the spirit of this leverage stuff, I've started to strip out some audios from old things that I've done. And I sent off, you go to rev.com, and you can actually do it from your phone even. So if you record an interview on your phone, you can upload it to rev.com and it will be transcribed within 24 hours for you by a real person. And I sent off two, I think a 13-minute one and a 15-minute one, and I was expecting it back within 24 hours, and they came back the same day, and they were near on perfect. It was absolutely astonishing, and it costs $1 a minute. So 75p a minute to get, so 15 minutes, $15, got some content along with the audio. Brilliant.
I thought when you said rev.com, that was going to be a website for vicars.
I'd hardly be recommending it then, would I? Oh, word. So there you go. Another episode has flown by, Judith, and we're well in under the 45-minute mark this time, where we did blether on last week rather badly.
we have been known to blether, Nicola, yes.
Yeah, on occasions. Have a lovely week. I will speak to you same time, same place.
Marvellous. See you then.
Bye. You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.